Adam, thank you very much. We're pleased to be joined live in studio now by Congressman Greg Walden. Congressman, good to see you.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So now, obviously, got to get your take on Harney County and everything. So 3 weeks into the situation there, the Oregonian reporting that the occupiers are now urging local ranchers to tear up their government grazing contracts. What would you like to see done here?
I'd like to see the protesters go home. I've said that since the beginning when they took over the refuge. It wasn't the right way to handle this. Protest is one thing. I certainly get protests at my office. They're peaceful. This takeover of a federal facility went too far, I think. They've certainly elevated the issues. Ranchers would be ill-advised, I think, to tear up their grazing permits and try and go an alternative path. I don't think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Various environmental groups today gathered 700 signatures, brought them on a petition to your Medford office today. They're asking Congress to protect public lands for all Americans. What do you want to see happen here?
Well, again, I'd like to see this resolved, but there are issues underlying all of this that cause the kind of frustration you see play out now. And I think for the first time across the country, people are realizing there are things going on in our public lands that don't make sense. There are overreaching bureaucracies at times that don't follow the law. I've encountered that in legislation I've written that affects Steens Mountain out in Harney County, where the agency came back a dozen years later and said, we don't think that was the intent of the law. Well, very few times can I say I think I know the intent because I wrote the law. And it took another act of Congress to make them follow the law that they were supposed to follow to begin with. I've seen it in terms of how some agencies have rejected communities who have come together, like on travel management plans out in the Wallowa-Whitman National Forest. 900 people, local citizens, turned out in protest when a forest supervisor new to the area picked a plan nobody wanted. They ended up having to pull back the plan. And so it's hard to have faith in your government when you feel like the fix is in and you don't have a say. And so I think, the agencies need to understand that they need to be more receptive of what the communities want. We have some really terrific federal workers out there that I work with on a regular basis. They do a great job. It only takes a few, though, to cause real problems, whether it's out on the range or out on our forests. These are our public lands. We need to be able to access them. People need to be able to do the things we love to do as Oregonians, and they need to be properly managed.
A new report from the United Way shows that in Oregon, 23% of households earn more than the official poverty level, but less than the basic cost of living. Right. I imagine many of these are your constituents.
Yes.
What are you doing to help them in Congress?
So I'd like to change all kinds of federal laws to help them. I was a small business owner for 2 decades. When you add more costs, more regulation, more rules on top of people trying to create a business and grow a small business, it suffocates them. And unless you've had to sign the front of that payroll check and comply with all these rules and regulations, it's hard to understand what that pressure is about. I've been there. We're trying to reform and reduce the regulatory onslaught. We've passed bipartisan legislation year after year to try and get better active management of our federal forests so they don't just all go up in smoke and choke our air sheds and destroy our watersheds. We could create jobs in the woods, thousands of them, put people back to work, and end up environmentally with healthier forests. Those are issues that matter. And trying to make sure that Oregon's #1 agriculture industry, livestock, continues to be able to thrive as well matters. But you're right, those statistics point right at Eastern Oregon and the poverty and the despair that is alive and well out there. If you look at the data in terms of population, if you look at the job losses for a decade or two, we have not seen replacement like other parts of the state have seen. And so that's all part of this frustration you see playing out in Harney County right now. And then there are the threats to lock up more land, kick more people off. The president allegedly has a plan to create a national monument over in Malheur County, next to Harney County, that would be as big as Yosemite National Park, 2.5 million acres. But they won't come out and tell us whether they're really doing it or how they're engaging the public. And so it's really, really frustrating when you represent these areas where 75% of the county already is federal land, and then people say, we can't feed our families, our schools are falling apart, we don't have jobs, what can you do to help? And so we have to, as Oregonians, I think, come together and realize we've got a part of our state that's really hurting. We need to find solutions.
Interesting. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Much more in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. Again, we're here with Congressman Greg Walden. Congressman, what do you think about the level of discourse right now in the presidential primary on the Republican side?
Well, I think on both sides, it kind of gets out of hand at times, but I've never seen the level of intensity and interest that viewers have. when you look at the ratings from the debates, Americans are really engaged like never before, because I think they're frustrated with what the government's doing or not doing, and they're looking for alternatives and answers. And I guess in a democracy, that's healthy to have people really engaged. I know it is. I wish sometimes people would be a little more careful about what they say and how they say it, not to be too offensive. But I think it also is speaking, whether it's Bernie Sanders on the left or somebody on the right, Trump or somebody. I mean, they're speaking to an audience that's reacting pretty strongly.
Long time till November. It will be interesting. We know that. Good to see you. Thanks very much.
Good to see you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.